The transport ship landed at the Galactic Military Academy on a cold morning. The academy was the best military school in the known galaxy. It trained warriors from over 200 different alien species. Some students had scales. Some had claws. Some had armor growing right out of their skin. All of them were dangerous. Megan Harper stepped off the ship with a small bag over her shoulder. She was 30 years old, with short brown hair and calm gray eyes. She was also human, and humans were new to the galaxy. Her species had only discovered faster than light travel 15 years ago. To the aliens watching her arrive, she looked weak. She had no claws, no fangs, no natural armor. Just soft skin and dull teeth. Easy prey, they thought. Megan walked through the docking bay and felt the stares. A massive gray-skinned warrior called a Krevik looked at her like she was food. Two silver-scaled females whispered to each other and pointed. A group of insect-like aliens clicked their mandibles in what might have been laughter. She had expected this. The reports from Earth had warned her. 2 human candidates had come to this academy before her. One had gone home with broken bones. The other had simply disappeared. The official reports called these training accidents. Everyone knew better. The orientation hall was enormous. It was built to hold creatures of all sizes, from the 12-foot-tall Kravik to the tiny swarm creatures that moved as one. Megan found her seat and waited while the commandant gave his welcome speech. Commandant. Velix was a Torvan, a species known for their 4 eyes and tough hide. He had scars across his face and a metal arm that replaced the one he had lost in some old war. You have been chosen to represent your species at the finest military school in the galaxy, Velix said. His voice was deep and rough. Some of you will succeed. Many will fail. A few will learn that the reputation you brought here means nothing within these walls. After the speech, Megan went to find her room. The barracks were simple but clean. She had just started to unpack when someone knocked on her door. She opened it and found an insect creature standing there. It was about her height with a blue shell and 4 large eyes that caught the light. You are the human, the creature said. Its translator made the words sound flat and mechanical. I am Lieutenant Megan Harper. I am called Churik. I am also assigned to this corridor. The insect paused. I came to give you information that may help you survive. I appreciate that. The Krevivik named Garan has told others he will challenge you to a fight within the first week. The Valfine females led by Sareth have made bets on how long you will live. There is also a general pool among the candidates of whether you will die during training. Megan thought about this. What are the odds? 70% believe you will not survive the first month. And what do you think? Churik's antennae twitched. I think humans are unknown. I find unknown things interesting to watch. Fair enough. Thank you for the warning, Churik. The insect left and Megan sat on her bed. Through her window, she could see the training grounds stretching out toward the horizon. Obstacle courses, combat arenas, simulation buildings, all designed to create the best warriors in the galaxy. 70% thought she would die. She had faced worse odds before. She had faced worse odds on the mining station at Titan. She had faced worse odds during the boarding action at Kepler Station. And she had learned something in those fights that most aliens did not understand about humans. They did not quit. And when they were pushed into a corner, they got creative. The next morning brought the first combat training session. All the new candidates gathered in a large, circular arena. The floor was hard-packed dirt, and the walls were reinforced to handle any kind of violence. Instructor Veth stood in the center. He was an old Tarvan with 1 eye and a prosthetic leg. He had seen more battles than most candidates had seen years. Today you will be tested on basic combat skills, he announced. Find a partner. You will rotate through opponents until I have seen each of you fight. Megan watched as the other candidates paired up. Most chose partners from their own species or from allied groups. She stood alone, which did not surprise her. The Kravik named Goran approached. He was 3 times her size with gray hide like armor and hands that could crush steel. "Human," he said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. "I will be your first partner." The other candidates moved back to give them space. Churik watched from across the arena with still antennae. The Valthine females whispered to each other with obvious excitement. "Fine by me," Megan said. They took their positions. "Instructor." Veth glanced at them and made a note on his datapad, but said nothing. "Begin," Veth ordered. Goran charged. His fighting style was simple. Close the distance. Grab the opponent. Use superior strength to crush them. Against most enemies, this worked perfectly. Against someone a third his size with no armor, it should have been easy. Megan did not try to meet his charge. She stepped aside at the last moment and pivoted on her heel. As he passed, she drove the heel of her palm into a spot beneath his secondary arm. It was a nerve cluster she had memorized from her studies of Kravik anatomy during the flight here. Durant stumbled. The blow had not hurt him badly, but it had disrupted his balance. Before he could recover, she moved. A strike to the back of his knee. An elbow to the gap between his shoulder plates. A kick to the nerves behind his primary knee. He crashed to the ground. Megan stepped back, breathing steadily, hands loose at her sides. The arena was silent. Goran pushed himself up and she saw confusion in his eyes. He did not understand what had just happened. Neither did most of the watching candidates. "What was that?" demanded Sereth, the Valthine leader. Her silver scales were bristling. "Technique," Megan replied. "You might want to study it." She felt the shift in the room. The amusement was gone. The soft, weak human had just put a Kravik on the ground in less than 10 seconds. She had done it by knowing exactly where to hit. She had made herself a target. But she had also made a statement. Instructor Veth made another note on his datapad. Candidate Harper, impressive assessment. Candidate Goran, report to medical. The rest of you, continue rotations. Training resumed, but Megan felt eyes on her the whole time. She fought 3 more opponents that day. A Valthine, a Torvan, something covered in muscle and teeth that she did not recognize. She won 2 and lost 1, the fight against the Torvan, who was too big and too experienced. But she had made her point. The human was not prey. She was something else entirely. That night, Megan stood at her window and looked up at the alien stars. Somewhere out there, Earth kept turning without her. Her family was going about their lives. Her friends were working their jobs. And here she was, alone on an alien world, surrounded by creatures who wanted her dead. She smiled. This was exactly where she wanted to be. The weeks after her first victory changed things for Megan at the academy. The candidates who had dismissed her now watched her carefully. Those who had planned to drive her out had to think again about their approach. But the Valthine pack had not given up their hatred. If anything, it had grown stronger. Sereth and her 4 pack members were typical of their species. They were beautiful in a cold reptilian way with scales that changed color based on their mood. Their tails could strike hard enough to break bones. The Valthine were pack hunters. They were smart, and they were cruel. And they did not forgive. "They will not challenge you openly again," Churik observed during one of their evening meals. The cafeteria served food for hundreds of different species. Megan had found that her table in the corner was now regularly shared by the insect who had become something like a friend. The Valthine prefer to wear down their prey slowly. I noticed. Megan had found her equipment broken twice. Her schedule had been mysteriously changed to put her in the worst training groups. Her academic work had been flagged for review over small mistakes. None of it was bad enough for a formal complaint. but all of it was designed to make her life harder. The smart response would be to target the weakest member of their pack. Hurt one to scare the others. That is what a cellist would do. It is what any smart hunter would do. Megan shook her head. Humans do not think like that. We are not trying to pick off the weak. We are trying to understand the whole picture. I do not understand. Neither do the Valthine. That is going to be their problem. The chance to prove this came during the survival exercise in week 4. Candidates were dropped in teams of 6 onto an empty moon. They had to reach an extraction point 50 kilometers away. The environment was hostile. The atmosphere was thin. The temperatures swung from burning hot to freezing cold. The local animals ranged from annoying to deadly. Megan's team was herself, Churik, a quiet Torvan named Kavix, who had proven himself honorable, and 3 Valthine. Sareth herself and 2 of her pack members, Thesa and Vorn. She had no doubt this team was put together on purpose. Someone wanted to see what happened when the human was trapped in the wilderness with aliens who wanted her dead. The first day went well enough. The team made good progress, and the Valthine kept their hostility quiet. They set up camp as the temperature started dropping. Megan took the first watch while the others slept. The trouble came during the second watch. Megan woke to the sound of snarling. She came out of her shelter to find Sareth and Thissa circling a creature that had walked into their camp. It was about the size of a large dog with thick fur and tusks that gleamed in the dim light. "Do not get involved, human," Sareth hissed. "This is Valthine business." But something was wrong. The creature was not attacking. It was defending. Behind it was a smaller shape that Megan recognized as one of its young. "It is protecting its baby," she said. "If you back off, it will leave." "We do not back off. We are the superior hunters here." Sareth lunged. The creature met her with those tusks, and suddenly the night exploded into chaos. Thesa joined the fight. Vorn circled around to attack from behind. Kavix roared and moved to protect the camp from being destroyed. Megan made a choice. She grabbed a thermal flare from her pack and lit it. She threw it between the fighters. The sudden burst of light and heat sent the creature running into the darkness with its young scrambling after it. The Valthine turned on her. Their scales were flushed dark with rage. "You interfered," Sarah snarled. "That was our kill. You were about to get Thesa killed for nothing. That creature was not food, and it was not a threat until you made it one. You dare lecture us about pack tactics? You have no pack, no family, no one who would care if you died on this moon." Megan stepped forward. She was half the Valthine size. She had no claws, no venom, no armored scales. But something in her face made Sareth hesitate. "You are right," Megan said quietly. "I do not have a pack here. I do not have family. I am alone on this moon, surrounded by people who have made it very clear they want me gone or dead. Do you know what that means?" Sareth did not answer. "It means I have nothing to lose. And humans, when we have nothing to lose, that is when we are most dangerous." She let that sink in. "You want to keep this fight going? Fine. But understand that I am not going to play by your rules. I am not going to target your weakest member. I am not going to try to out-hunt you. I am going to do something you cannot predict because you do not understand how humans think. And how do humans think? We work together, even with our enemies when survival is at stake. We share what we know. We build partnerships that do not make sense to hunting species. And we remember, Sareth. We remember everyone who helped us and everyone who hurt us. We play very long games." The standoff lasted for a long moment. Then Thesa made a sound, and Megan saw blood seeping from a wound in her side. The creature's tusks had found their mark. "She needs medical help," Megan said. "We can finish this talk later, or we can get your pack member to extraction alive." Your choice. Sarath's scales shifted through many colors before settling on dull gray. You will not use this against us. I am not using anything against anyone. I am getting us all to extraction, because that is the mission. They made it to the extraction point 18 hours later. Thesa survived, though the wound left a permanent scar. Sarah said nothing to Megan during the debriefing or in the days that followed. But the sabotage stopped, and Churik observed, with what might have been amusement, that the betting pool on Megan's survival had changed significantly in her favor. In the quiet days that followed, Megan thought about what had happened. She had not defeated the Valthene. She had not even really fought them. She had simply changed the terms of the conflict. She had shown them that she was not playing the game they expected. This was something humans had learned over thousands of years of history. Sometimes the best way to win was to refuse to fight on your enemy's terms. Sometimes you had to change the game entirely. The Valthene were hunters. They understood prey and predators. They understood strength and weakness. What they did not understand was cooperation between competitors. What they did not understand was strategic patience. What they did not understand was a species that would rather build bridges than burn them. Megan intended to teach them one lesson at a time. She found Churik that evening in the observation deck looking out at the stars. The situation with the Valthene has shifted, the insect said without turning around. It has. You did not defeat them. You confused them. That may be more dangerous than a simple victory. Maybe. But it also opens doors. Sareth does not understand me now. That means she has to think about me differently. And thinking differently is the first step to changing your mind. Churik's antennae moved in a pattern Megan had learned to recognize as curiosity. You believe you can turn enemies into allies? I believe everyone is a potential ally until they prove otherwise. And even then, I believe people can change. Megan smiled. That is probably the most human thing about me. It is either very wise or very foolish. Probably both. But it has kept my species alive this long. They stood together watching the stars. Two very different creatures from two very different worlds. But in that moment they understood each other perfectly. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers. But it was also full of possibilities. And Megan Harper intended to explore every single one. 6 months into her time at the academy, Megan had earned a place. She was no longer the underdog that everyone was waiting to fail. She had become someone that all the other candidates had to think about. Her combat scores were in the upper third of her class. Not the highest, but respectable when she was fighting against species with natural advantages in strength, speed, and toughness. Her tactical scores were excellent. Her strategic thinking had impressed instructors who had first dismissed her. She had also made friends. Churik remained her closest ally. The insect's logical mind balanced her own more instinctive approach. Kavix had become a regular training partner. The big Torvan's quiet humor had surprised her once she learned to recognize it. Even Sareth, after what happened on the moon, had settled into something like respect. But not everyone was happy with her success. The Krvavak controlled the top spots in physical training. They took their positions seriously. Garan had never forgiven her for that first fight. His failure to drive her out had become a source of shame among his people. The challenge came during evening meal in front of the entire candidate population. Human, Garan announced. His voice carried across the whole cafeteria. I call for dominance combat. The hall fell silent. Dominance combat was an ancient tradition. It was officially allowed. It was often deadly. And it could not be refused without permanent dishonor. Megan set down her food. On what grounds? You shamed me in our first fight. You used tricks rather than strength. You have continued to advance through methods unworthy of a warrior." His massive form loomed as he walked toward her table. "I will correct this mistake. And if I win?" Laughter came from the Kravik section of the cafeteria. Duran's lips pulled back to show teeth that could tear through metal. "You will not win, human. But tradition demands I answer. If you win, I will publicly admit your worth as a warrior. And if you win, your death will be answer enough." Megan looked around the cafeteria. She saw Churik watching with still antennae. Kavix had half risen from his seat. Even Sareth was watching, her scales shifting through shades of gray and blue. "When?" she asked. 3 days. Arena 1. The commandant has been told. He turned and walked away. The cafeteria exploded into conversation. The next 3 days were intense. Churik provided analysis on Kravik bodies and fighting patterns. Kavix offered to serve as her training partner. His Torvan build was the closest thing to Kravik size available among her allies. Even Sareth appeared at one training session, watching quietly before offering a single piece of advice. "The Kravik have a weakness in their thinking," the Valfine said. "They expect everyone to fight like a Kravik." Use that. The night before the fight, Megan walked the grounds of the academy. The alien stars were unfamiliar. The air carried smells she had never learned to name. And somewhere across the vast emptiness of space, Earth kept turning without her. She found herself at the edge of the combat arena where she would fight tomorrow. The force fields that would contain the battle hummed quietly. The viewing stands were empty, but in less than 12 hours, they would be filled with candidates and instructors who had come to watch her die. Having second thoughts, she turned to find Commandant Velix approaching. The old Torvan moved with the careful grace of a lifelong warrior. "No," she said. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About why I am here. About what this means. About whether I am doing the right thing." Velix made a rumbling sound that might have been a laugh. Warriors who ask such questions are either the wisest or the most foolish. "I have not decided which you are yet. That makes 2 of us. I have watched your progress, Candidate Harper. You are not the strongest warrior here. You are not the fastest or the toughest or the most naturally talented. But you may be the most adaptable. And in a galaxy full of species that rely on their strengths, being adaptable is its own kind of power. Is that supposed to encourage me? It is supposed to inform you. Tomorrow you will face someone who has every physical advantage. He will expect you to fight the same way you did before. He has prepared for that, so I should do something different. You should do whatever gives you the best chance of survival. That is all any warrior can do." The next morning, Arena 1 was packed. The circular space had been expanded to its largest size. Force fields marked the combat boundary. Medical teams stood ready. The viewing stands held members of every species at the academy, along with instructors and even some dignitaries who had traveled to watch. A human facing a Kravik in deadly combat. It had never happened before. Megan entered the arena in her training uniform. She carried no weapons. The challenge specified hand-to-hand combat only. Across the space, Garan waited. His massive form threw a shadow that seemed to swallow the light. Commandant Velix stood at the arena's edge. This is sanctioned dominance combat between Candidate Garan of the Kravik and Candidate Harper of humanity. The fight continues until one party gives up, cannot continue, or is killed. There are no limits on technique. Do both parties understand and accept? "I accept," Garan growled. "I accept," Megan said. "Begin." Garan charged. She had expected this. His pattern was always the same. Close distance, grab, crush. It was what Kravik did. He had probably planned counters for every way she might try to avoid him. So she did not avoid him. She charged directly at him. The crowd reacted with gasps and hisses and clicking sounds. Garan himself seemed startled. His charge faltered for just a moment as his target did the unexpected. That moment was enough. Megan dropped into a slide at the last second. She passed under his reaching arms. As she slid past, she drove her heel into the back of his ankle where Kravik tendons were weakest. Garan stumbled. She was already on her feet, moving, hitting the nerve cluster she had targeted in their first fight. But this time, she hit it 3 times fast, each blow building on the last. He roared and swung at her. She ducked, rolled, came up behind him, and drove both thumbs in the pressure points beneath his secondary arms. "You cannot hurt me, human," he snarled, turning to face her. "You are too weak." "I am not trying to hurt you," she said. "I am trying to beat you. Those are different things." She charged again. This time, he was ready. His massive arm swung down in a blow that would have killed her if it hit. She twisted at the last moment, feeling the wind of his strike pass her face, and caught his arm as it went by. She could not stop it. She could not match his strength. But she could redirect it. Using his own momentum, she pulled herself up onto his back. Before he could react, her arms were around his throat, not squeezing his airway, which would be useless against Kravik anatomy, but pressing on the blood vessels that fed his brain. "What are you doing?" he demanded, trying to reach her. His arms could not bend far enough backward. His neck was too thick to shake her loose. Something you did not prepare for. She squeezed. Not with her arms, since human arms were not strong enough. She used her whole body, wrapping her legs around his torso and putting pressure from every angle at once. The crowd was on its feet. Garan thrashed, trying to throw her off. But every movement she rode, adjusting her position, keeping the pressure steady. Her muscles screamed. Her vision was starting to blur from the effort, but she held on. "Give up," she said, her voice strained. "Never," he gasped. But his movements were slowing. The blood restriction was affecting him. "Give up, and you can tell everyone you fought well. You can say the human got lucky. You can keep your honor." She tightened her grip. "Or do not give up, and I keep this hold until you pass out. Either way, I win. The only choice you have is how it ends." For a long moment, there was only the sound of his labored breathing and her own pounding heart. Then Garan dropped to his knees. "I give up," he said. The words seemed to cost him more than the fight itself. "The human has proven her worth." Megan released him and dropped to the ground. Her legs barely held her up. The arena was silent. Then Churik began making a clicking rhythmic sound. It took her a moment to realize it was applause. Others joined in. Not all of them. Some watched in silence or with clear hostility. But enough. Enough to know that something had changed. She had come to the academy as a curiosity, a representative of a species nobody took seriously. She was leaving this arena as something else. A Beia, warrior who had earned her place. The months after her victory over Garan marked a real shift in Megan's academy life. She was no longer the underdog. She was no longer prey that the predators were circling. She had become something more complicated. A factor that everyone had to think about. Her friendship with Churik had grown deep and true. The insect had a view of the galaxy that was completely different from human thinking. Collective minds, hive logic, the strange poetry of insect civilization. Megan found their conversations fascinating. "Your species confuses me," Churik admitted one evening as they studied together. "You are weak alone, but powerful together. You live short lives, but think about long-term results. You are emotional, but can use cold logic when you need to." "Humans are full of contradictions," Megan agreed. "It is kind of our thing. It is interesting to watch. And very annoying." She laughed. The sound still startled some of the aliens around her. Humor, she had learned, was not universal. Many species found it unsettling. Her relationships with other candidates kept changing. Sareth had moved from grudging respect to something like actual partnership. The Valthine's pack instincts seemed to accept Megan as a useful, if strange, associate. Kavix had become her regular training partner. Their sessions drew spectators who wanted to study her unusual techniques. Even Garan, though he kept his distance, no longer treated her with open hostility. The Krvi code of honor was absolute. She had beaten him fairly. His public admission of her worth bound him like a contract, but not everyone was happy with her rise. The upper levels of the Academy's candidate hierarchy had watched her progress with growing worry. The established power structures had been built over centuries. They were based on tradition and species-based alliances. One human who refused to play by expected rules was disrupting everything. The first sign of trouble came during the tactical simulation exercises in Month 8. The exercise was complex. A mock planetary defense situation with 3 teams competing to attack or defend a strategic target. Megan had been assigned as team leader for one of the defending forces. Her first major command role. Her team was undermined from the start. Key equipment broke down. Communication channels were blocked by technical problems. 2 of her assigned team members, both from species known to hate humans, followed orders with obvious incompetence. She lost the exercise. Badly. The review after was brutal. Instructor Veth listed every mistake, every failure, every moment when her leadership had fallen short. He made no mention of the sabotage, though Megan was certain he knew about it. Your tactical scores will be adjusted, Veth concluded. You are dismissed. She found Churik waiting outside the review room. The insect's antennae were flat against their head, a sign of worry. That was not a fair assessment, Churik said. No, it was not. Will you report the sabotage? Megan thought about the question. She had evidence. Not enough to prove deliberate interference, but enough to raise doubt about the results. She could file a formal complaint. She could request a review. She could challenge the findings, or she could respond in a way her enemies would not expect. Not yet, she said. I am going to do something else first. What? I am going to let them think they won. Over the next few weeks, she played the role of a candidate whose confidence had been shaken. She performed adequately in training, but not exceptionally. She spoke less in tactical discussions. She accepted assignments without her usual energy. The power structure relaxed. The candidates who had arranged her humiliation celebrated their success. The whispered conversations in the corridors took on a satisfied tone. And Megan watched and listened and learned. She learned that the sabotage had been coordinated by a group of senior candidates from 5 different species. She learned they had similar plans for other candidates who threatened their positions. She learned the names, the methods, and the weaknesses of everyone involved. Then, during the annual command exercise, the most important tactical test of the academic year, she struck back. The command exercise was massive. 50 candidates divided into 5 fleets, each with its own command structure, competing in a simulated space war. Victory required not just tactical skill, but political maneuvering, resource management, and the ability to build and maintain alliances. Megan had been assigned a low position, fleet assistant for one of the weaker groups. Her commander was a Valthine named Draxus, competent but not inspiring. Her fleet was expected to be eliminated in the first phase. Instead, she spent the first 3 days building relationships. She reached out to candidates who had been overlooked or pushed aside. The quiet cellist tactical officer who processed information faster than anyone in the exercise. The Kravik weapons specialist who had been passed over for promotion by his own fleet's leadership. The human engineering candidate who had arrived at the academy 6 months after Megan. That last conversation mattered most. Lieutenant Danny Cole was young and eager. He had been struggling to find his place in the Academy's hierarchy. He reminded Megan of herself when she had first arrived. "They do not take us seriously," he said with obvious frustration. "No matter what we do, they see us as the new species, the newcomers who do not understand how things work." "They see what they expect to see," Megan replied. "That is their weakness." "How do you mean?" "The established powers in this exercise have been fighting each other for generations. They know each other's tactics and patterns and weaknesses. They have built their strategies around those assumptions." She smiled. "They have not built strategies around us. They do not know how humans think or fight or make decisions. And that helps us how? It means we are unpredictable. And in war, being unpredictable is a weapon." The turning point came on day 4. The group that had sabotaged her previous test launched their attack. They had maneuvered brilliantly, cutting off her fleet's main force while positioning their own. Ships for a killing blow. It should have been a massacre. Instead, Megan triggered the trap she had been building since day 1. The overlooked Chelith tactical officer had found the enemy's communication frequencies. The passed-over Krivek weapons specialist had reprogrammed their targeting systems. Danny Cole's engineering team had modified their fleet shields in ways the enemy's weapons could not handle, and Megan herself had spent days building relationships with candidates in 2 other fleets. Relationships that suddenly became military alliances as the attack began. The enemy group found itself surrounded. Their carefully planned ambush became their own trap. When the battle ended, their entire force had been eliminated from the exercise. "How?" demanded one of the defeated leaders during the required discussion after. "You had weaker forces, worse position, fewer resources." Megan looked at him calmly. "I had something you did not. I had people you overlooked. People you dismissed because they did not fit into your hierarchy. Turns out those people were very motivated to help bring you down." She let that sink in before continuing. "You tried to sabotage me months ago because you saw me as a threat to your position. You did not understand that humans do not think in terms of personal position. We think in terms of systems, networks, relationships." She smiled. "You were not my target. Your entire power structure was." The command exercise ended with Megan's group in first place. More importantly, it ended with the old power structure broken. New alliances had formed based on ability rather than tradition, respect rather than fear. Commandant Velix called her to his office the next day. "You are either the most brilliant tactician at this academy in generations," he said, "or the most dangerous. Can I be both?" He made that rumbling laugh sound again. "Perhaps. I have received messages from 3 different species military commands asking about you. 2 want to recruit you. 1 wants to make sure you never leave the academy alive. I am honored. You should be worried. You have disrupted centuries of practice in a single exercise. There will be consequences. There always are." Velix studied her with all 4 eyes. "Why did you do it? You could have focused on your own advancement. Instead, you tore down a power structure that had nothing to do with your personal success." Megan thought about the question, because it was wrong. The way they treated candidates who did not fit their expectations. The way they kept power through fear and sabotage. The way they assumed strength was the only thing that mattered. She met his gaze. Humans learned long ago that systems built on those ideas do not last. They fall apart from inside. I just sped up the process. And what kind of system do you think should replace it? One based on ability, on cooperation, on understanding that the galaxy is bigger than any single species and that we will all need each other eventually." The commandant was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. "I will be watching your career with great interest, Candidate Harper. You may go." The final months of the academy year brought the ultimate test. The Crucible. The Crucible was the academy's graduation exercise. A month-long simulation that pushed candidates to their absolute limits. Teams would be formed. Missions would be assigned. Success or failure would shape careers for years to come. But this year, the Crucible was different. "We have received word of a real threat," Commandant Velix announced to all the candidates. "A rogue fleet operating in the outer reaches has been attacking trade ships and blocking travel routes. Normally, this would be handled by regular military forces. But the fleet's makeup and tactics are unknown. High Command has asked for Academy help in scouting and possible engagement." The hall erupted in whispered conversations. A real mission. Not a simulation. Actual combat operations. "Participation is voluntary," Velix continued. "Those who join will receive credit for the Crucible if they complete their mission successfully. Those who choose not to join will complete a standard Crucible simulation here at the Academy. There is no punishment for saying no." Megan looked at her allies. Churik's antennae were forward with interest. Kavix was nodding slowly. Even Sarath's scales had shifted to bright silver. The color of excitement. There was never really a choice. The scout fleet left 3 days, later carrying 30 candidates divided into 5 teams. Megan's team included Churik, Kavix, Danny Cole, a Valthine pilot named Tezra, and a quiet Chelith communications expert named Crix, who was from the same collective as Churik. Their mission was simple. Scout the outer system where the rogue fleet had last been seen. Gather information about their numbers and intentions. Withdraw to report. Fighting was not recommended unless absolutely necessary. The first 2 weeks went smoothly. They found traces of the rogue fleet's passage. They collected evidence of their attacks. They built a picture of an organized force with advanced capabilities. Too advanced, Megan realized. Too well equipped for simple pirates. "This is not a rogue fleet," she told her team during their nightly meeting. "Look at these weapon signatures. Look at how coordinated their attack patterns are. This is a military operation pretending to be piracy. For what purpose?" Kavix asked. "To create chaos. Someone wants the outer trade routes disrupted. Someone with resources and long-term plans." She pulled up the star map they had been building. "And I think I know where they are based." The location she had identified was an asteroid field in unclaimed space. A region that multiple powers had been arguing over for decades. The perfect place to hide a secret military operation that no government would want to take responsibility for. "We need to report this immediately," Churik advised. "This is beyond what we were sent to do. If we report, they will send a full fleet. By the time it arrives, the base will be gone, and so will any evidence of who is behind this." Megan studied the map. "But if we can get close enough to identify who is responsible, we risk open battle with a force of unknown size," Kavix said. "That is not a scouting mission. That is potential suicide." "Yes, it is." The team was silent. Megan looked at each of them in turn. Churik with still antennae. Kavix's face unreadable. Danny's young features tight with tension. Tessera and Crix watching and waiting. "I am not ordering anyone to do this," she said. "This is beyond what we signed up for. We can report what we found and go home. No one will blame us." She paused. "But if we do that, whoever is behind this will keep operating. More ships will be attacked. More people will die. And the chaos they are working toward will continue. And if we go," Danny said quietly, "some of us might not come back. Some of us might not come back." Another silence. Then Churik's antennae rose. "The Chelith Collective has a saying," the insect said. "Individual survival serves the swarm. Swarm survival serves the species. Species survival serves the galaxy. If this operation threatens the balance of the galaxy, then stopping it serves the highest purpose. A pause. I will go with you, Kavix rumbled. Torvan, do not run from necessary battles. I am with you. Danny straightened his shoulders. Humans do not back down from fights that matter. I am in. Tessera and Crix exchanged a look. Some form of communication that Megan did not catch. Then Tessera nodded. The Valthene respect courage. And this is a hunt worth following. Crix clicked agreement. Megan felt something warm in her chest. Not quite hope, but something like it. All right then. Let us do something stupid and brave. They approached the asteroid field under stealth. Their small ship's signature was hidden by the debris. What they found was worse than their worst expectations. The base was massive. A hollowed-out asteroid with docking facilities, weapons platforms, and a fleet of attack ships larger than anything a pirate operation could afford. And at the center of it all, sending out an identification signal that Megan recognized immediately. That is a Valthene command ship, Tessera breathed. A military command ship. Official markings and everything. Not just Valthene, Turek said, analyzing the sensor data. I am detecting ships from 3 other species militaries. All officially listed as lost or retired. A joint operation, Megan said. Multiple powers working together to destabilize the outer regions while keeping their hands clean. She thought through what this meant. If this gets out, it could start an interstellar war. If we are captured, it will be denied, Kavix observed. 6 Academy candidates acting beyond their mission. No government will claim us. We will be abandoned. Probably killed, Danny added. Yes. Megan stared at the display, watching the lights of the secret fleet moving in their patterns. She thought about everything she had learned at the Academy. About power. About systems. About how the galaxy really worked beneath its surface of treaties and alliances. We cannot fight them, she said finally. But we can expose them. Crix, can you boost our communication equipment to break through their jamming? The Chelith's antennae worked quickly. With modifications, yes. But they will detect the transmission. That is the point. Kavix, Tessera, I need you to calculate an escape route through the asteroid field. Turek, help me put together the evidence package. Danny, get the engines ready for emergency departure. What is the plan? Tessera asked. Megan smiled. We are going to send everything we recorded. Ship identifications, weapon signatures, the whole secret operation to every major government, news organization, and military command in the sector. All at once. And then we are going to run very fast. They will chase us. Yes, but they cannot chase us and keep their secret at the same time. Once that transmission goes out, the only thing that matters is stopping us from being captured. And we are going to make that extremely difficult. The transmission went out 17 minutes later. The response was immediate. Alarms. Weapons powering up. Ships breaking from their docks to pursue. What followed was the longest 4 hours of Megan's life. The asteroid field became their ally. Their small ship weaved through debris that larger ships could not navigate. Crix kept changing their signature, making them harder to track. Tessera flew like nothing Megan had ever seen, threading between rocks and radiation that should have destroyed them a dozen times. They were hit twice. The first strike took out their secondary systems. The second nearly broke through the hull before Danny and Kavix sealed it, with emergency patches. But they kept going. The pursuit thinned as ships were damaged or called back. The secret base, exposed and vulnerable, had other priorities now. They needed to evacuate before the governments they had betrayed came looking for answers. When they finally cleared the asteroid field and jumped to faster than light travel, Megan allowed herself to breathe for what felt like the first time in hours. Did we make it? Danny asked. His face was pale in the emergency lighting. We made it. What happens now? Megan thought about the transmission they had sent. The evidence that was even now spreading across the sector, being analyzed by intelligence agencies and broadcast by news organizations. She thought about the governments that would have to answer for their involvement in a secret destabilization campaign. She thought about the ripples that would spread outward from this moment, changing galactic politics for years to come. Now things get interesting. They returned to the Academy as heroes. The evidence they had gathered led to investigations, arrests, and major changes in several interstellar agreements. The powers behind the secret operation were forced to admit their involvement. The resulting scandal shifted the balance of power in ways nobody could have predicted. The graduation ceremony took place 2 weeks later. Megan stood with her classmates as Commandant Velix addressed them for the final time. You came to this academy as representatives of your species. You leave as something more. Warriors, yes, but also leaders who understand that true strength comes not from control, but from wisdom. His eyes found Megan for just a moment. Go forth and serve. The galaxy needs you. Afterward, as the graduates said their goodbyes, Turek approached Megan. I have been assigned to the Cellist Strategic Analysis Division, the insect said. We will not see each other often, I think. Probably not. I wish to express gratitude. Before you, I believe strength was the main currency of the galaxy. You showed me that connection and cooperation and doing the unexpected can be just as powerful. Megan felt her throat tighten. You showed me that friendship does not require similarity, just respect.